ai ghi vậy? Từ từ. Cô đang ghi phải không? Ủa có người record lại chưa vậy? Ok. Hello, I'm Hồng Ngọc and I will be in charge of the language focus part. And first, let's come to the grammar point, independent prepositions. Okay, and first, let's come to the prepositions classification. Prepositions are divided into 5 main groups, which are direct prepositions of directions. The second one is prepositions of orientation, and in this group we will have 2 smaller ones are vertical projections and horizontal projections. Next group is prepositions of location, and then we have prepositions of transportation, and the last group is prepositions of time, and we also have 3 smaller groups, which are specific time, events, and period of time. The second group is approximate time, events, and period of time, and the last group is before and after time, events, and period of time. So let's come to the first group, prepositions of direction. They are used to describe a change in positions, motion, or direction. We have some examples are from, to, into, out of, etc. And we will just talk about some prepositions that we think that you should pay attention to. And first, let's talk about onto. Onto implies movement in direction of a surface, regardless of its shape or positions. For example, the plane drifted off the runway onto the crash. And let's compare between onto and on through these 2 sentences. A. The father lifted the child onto his shoulders. And B. The father lifted the child on his shoulders. In A, the father lifted his child from a lower position, say from the floor or from the baby pram, and set her on his shoulders. But in B, the father lifted her to a higher position, using his shoulders as support, which means that the child was already on his shoulders. Okay, and let's move to the second word. Toward differs from the preposition to because it always had 2 connection phase, while to shows direction, movement, and reception. Toward suggests only direction or direction and movement. We also have 2 sentences to compare. A. Ahmed flew from New York to London, and B. Wang Li flew towards London but landed on Crawley. In the sentence A, the speaker wants to mean that Ahmed's final destination was London, and in B, the speaker was not really worried about Wang Li's final destination, which could be also Crawley or London. Okay, let's talk about the third word. Around and round means on all sides of a contour or a detour. Round and around and round mean in cycling a direction that contours or surrounds a reference on all sides or just in part, like we can see in these 3 pictures. And next one is via. Via is a route through or by way of a particular reference. via functions as a zero-dimensional prepositions. Like in the picture, we can see that the man is biking from A to D via B. And let's come to the second group, prepositions of orientation. This is a specific class of prepositions of location used to designate a region in a vertical or horizontal position protected from its reference. Some examples of vertical projections are above, below, over, etc. And horizontal projections are in front of, behind, ahead of, at the front of, etc. So let's begin with the first word, above, below, under, over are some vertical opposites, like we can see them in these 5 pictures. While under express a constant or temporary vertical relation between an entity and its reference, underneath express an additional relation of proximity or contact with a larger reference. As you can see in these 3 pictures. And about horizontal projections, the first word is ahead of, used to demonstrate that or how much something or someone is in front of or further away from the specified reference. For example, the storm was 10 miles ahead of the boats. The black horse is ahead of the white horse. In advance of, show forward distance or progress from a reference, regardless of a specific front orientation. For example, 20,000 soldiers were in line of battle 1 mile in advance of the enemy. The enemy was camped about 5 miles in advance of the village. And these are 2 last words we want to introduce. At the front of, used to designate the front or forward part of something or of a collection of things or people inside or outside a place. For example, supermarkets put their oldest products at the front of the shelves. In the front of, show something or someone in the front of, in the front part of or inside a place. Example, she prefers to sit in the front of the classroom. And that is the end of my part, and the remaining group will be represented by Phương Linh. Thanks for listening.
Okay, now we should move on to the prepositions of location. The prepositions of locations or locational prepositions are used to designate a place, a position, or a location of an entity that is somehow connected to its reference. Um, So this is a hierarchy, shows how the prepositions in and on are related in a particular group of situations. Take, for instance, the geographic urban and the geographic rural context. As we can see, we use in for the continent. The continent contains the country. And we also use in for the country, the state, and the city or the county as the same use as the continent. But we use on for the street or farm because the streets and the farms do not contain other official geopolitical delimited areas. So, what about the addresses on the streets? Addresses are specific points related to a place or they are not regions but zero-dimensional points or reference. The examples below show how in, on, and at interact as prepositions of location. He lives in London on Downing Street at 10 Downing Street. He lives in Washington on Pennsylvania Avenue at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Uh, so we will compare between on the corner, at the corner, and in the corner. On the corner is being used because the corner is the part of a street which, as we have already seen, represents the smallest prepositional part of the city in terms of magnitude. At the corner functions as a reference, not as a dimension, meaning merely that the man is at the point of intersection between two roads, the boundaries where these roads meet, and acts as designating a temporary position and on as designing a fixed position, whereas in will always designate a sense of containment. We will see the examples below. The bank is on the corner. They will meet at the corner of Oak and Brook Streets, and the broom is in the corner. So we will move to prepositions of time. The prepositions of time or temporal prepositions designate exact and related time, including indefinite time, periods of time, and duration of time and events. These prepositions will also be categorized into three groups: specific time, events, and period of time; approximate time, events, and period of time; and the last one is before and after time, events, and period of time. So, analyzing the periods of time. So first we will move to specific time, events, and period of time. And analyzing the periods of time in a decreasing order of hierarchy and calendar divisions, being the century, the top representation, the result could be expressed as in the examples. And we can see the preposition on is the smaller magnitude of in. And the picture below is the illustration of our prepositional spiral of time, demonstrates days up to a century or further, and down to the last period of time of a calendar, a day, with its subdivisions in hours. And a day is the base of the preposition on, and the hours are treated with the preposition at as subdivisions of a day. So, having seen earlier why in and on functions at calendar level, and at indicates precise time are events of a day. The preposition in also indicates periods of time as the diagram demonstrates. And here are some examples. She received an important call at dawn, and she received an important call in the morning. Next one is preposition, approximate time, events, and periods of time. First, we we just give you some uh, examples of these prepositions to illustrate this point. First, we have toward is approaching a specific time or event. For example, I'm going to leave toward 6 o'clock, or roundabout at an approximate time or period of time. This double preposition may be replaced by around. For example, he arrived at the party round about midnight, and we have gone, which means that past or later than or older than. For example, you're late, you should be there at 7, and it's gone 8 o'clock now. And the last one, we can see that is before and after time, events and periods of time. We have prior to, which means that before or until. For example, prior to 2008, he served as the senior advisor to the president. And we have pending, which means that until, while waiting for a future event or unless. We will compare pending in different situations below. A. The decision was delayed pending his return, which means that the decision was delayed until his return. B. They voted to continue the project pending renegotiations, which means that they voted to continue the project under the condition that there will be a renegotiation before they actually continue the project. Or C, the proposal was accepted pending approval by the president, which means that the proposal was previously accepted but will not be implemented until or unless the president approves it. And we have passed, which means that time after an hour or period or event. For example, the project will be concluded a month past schedule, or it is a month past Christmas and I haven't taken the Christmas tree yet. Uh, and last but not least is the prepositions of transportation. These prepositions indicate position relative to means and modes of transportation, including expressions describing locomotion and its forms. So here is the table illustrates the use of two prepositions in and on. For vehicles, we use in for private transportation or small vehicles like taxi, car, truck, canoe, kayak, etc. For example, Mary is in a taxi going to work. We use on for public transportations or big vehicles, or maybe some exceptions. For example, on a bus, on a plane, on a ship or cruise, on a train, on a subway, on a trolley, on a motorbike, or on the bicycle. For example, the kids had a snack on a plane. They arrived on a motorcycle. But for users, we use in for both passengers and crew of private transportation. For example, the driver is in an Uber, or there are some of Alan's friends in his car, or used for crew of public transport. For example, the driver is in the bus. On the other hand, on is used for passengers of public transport. For example, there are 3 passengers on the bus. And we will compare the two examples besides. My brother is on a pilot. He's on vacation now. He's on that plane. And my sister is a pilot too. She's working now. She's in the plane. So what is the difference? In the first sentence, the pilot on the plane is actually a passenger. He's off duty. But in the second sentence, my sister can be the captain or the co-pilot in the cockpit, which means that she is on duty. So we have to use in the plane. Uh, and here are the answer key for the exercises of preposition so that you can check whether you are right or wrong. Thank you for your attention, and now we will move to the phonetics with Hồng Anh.